before we get started, I just got to say I am a student, or I need to be more of a student of breathing because I don't think I have it figured out. I'm definitely better than I used to. But the more I train, the more I realize that I think my limitations are my breathing and maybe in life as well. Quick example, I swim once a week and I've been practicing the butterfly stroke. And up until last week, my maximum was like 75 meters, which took me a long time to get to. And I've been really concentrating on my breath, Dylan. And my instructor's been saying, Brian, it's your breathing, it's your breathing. I'm like, no, it's because this is hard. And I just busted out a 120-meter butterfly, and it was all because I just relaxed and got my breathing right. So, regardless of all the other aspects of my life, which we can talk about today, I already know that what you're going to teach me is going to help today. So really looking forward to talking to you about this stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things I've really been focusing on for the past few years is actually how to use a breath to increase your athletic performance. It's a super powerful tool to work on your breath during swimming, though. That's something that's super challenging, mostly because it's so hard to breathe through your nose while you're swimming because you inhale through your nose, you inhale water. And one of the most fundamental things that you need to do to increase athletic performance or anything having to do with health and well-being is breathe through your nose.
Right. And we're going to get into that. I know there's a ton of good benefits. Like you said, in swimming, you can't. And even like my dance practice, I've been doing some break dancing. I realized that a lot of times I'm holding my breath, and that just means I can't do the moves I need to do, etc. So look, I can't wait to get into it. I'm so glad you wrote this book, and hopefully we can go through some breathing techniques for some people later. Before we get there, I wanted just to talk or explain to people a little bit about your journey with yoga because you were here about 4 years ago. We went deep into it, and I watched you go around the world. And I love your Instagram, and I love it, maybe not for the reasons that everyone else loves it. Your pictures are incredible. They're beautiful. But I like your blogging just as much as your pictures because you're always getting really personal and really deep about your own evolution and how yoga is a part of your evolution and your evolution's part of yoga. And the breathing has come into it. And I was just wondering if you could talk about the last 4 years, maybe the last 10 years, as you've traveled the world with this practice and teaching other people, like what's been happening with you lately?
Well, when the pandemic hit, I was actually in London, and that's where I got locked down. That's when I wrote the book, was when I was in London. And I was approached by the publisher to write something. And I'd been thinking about writing a few different books. I wanted to write a book on poetry, wanted to write a philosophy book. I was thinking about calling it Unveiling the Maya, which is basically understanding what truth is. And then some technical yoga books, but the one that had been really in the back of my mind was a book on breathing. It was something that I felt that there just wasn't enough information out there. There's breathing, and especially breath work, has been kind of coming more into the mainstream, which is an amazing thing. But still in that, there's still very little information. And it seems to be either one of two schools. Either it's very anatomical or physiological through the science part, or it's yoga based through pranayama. And what I notice is there's a lot of correlations between both of them. They're essentially saying the same thing, but using two different maps to describe it. And so I wanted to kind of show how the breath could be useful. So when first of all, I've been teaching breath work around the world for, I don't know, almost a decade now. And teaching the style of breathing that I call breath sequencing, which is basically like a vinyasa class or a yoga class where you work towards an intention. And what I had been exposed to as far as pranayama was a lot of here's a breath practice, and it's it's good for everything, but it was kind of each breath practice was like a Swiss Army knife. It didn't have one single purpose. It was kind of everything. And the problem with something or every breath being good for everything is that you don't know exactly really what it's doing, which ones are the best ones or how it's going about. And the problem with pranayama, or at least how it's been taught, it's been teacher to guru. And there's many different teachers and different students that have spread this, but every teacher has their own interpretation of what that practice may be. And so as they teach it, you start to hear contradictions or different thoughts. And when you go to the literature, and there's not a lot of literature out there, there's only been a few modern books that are really express pranayama. But if you go to the ancient books, it's very vague on what each one of them do. So I wanted to take the approach to keep the yoga in it while still exploring the physiological part and how does this affect our nervous system, looking at the autonomic nervous system. And the way that I explored it was primarily the polyvagal theory, which is dividing our nervous system up into 3 different parts, which is mostly having to do with how we interact with other people. And so almost on an emotional level, because our nervous system is really how we respond to our environment, how we see people, how we see ourselves. It's not only what our environment is doing, as far as like if we're in a safe or unsafe situation, but also how we feel about that being safe or unsafe. And then there's a balance aspect of that as well. And with that, I mean, we could talk about the nervous system for a really long time because it's super interesting with breathing. But I saw that how that related to these other philosophies in yoga, mainly the gunas, which is kind of how energy is manifested through everything. There's an upper, a lower, and a middle with the nadis, which is like kind of our characteristics or attributes of self, and through the vayus, which the vayus have to do with how energy moves through the body. And really how I look at it is our relationship to ourself and to nature and people. And so when you see all those things, they're affected directly by the breath. If you look at HRV, which is heart rate variability, just something that a lot of athletes use to know how the recovery is, to understand how what they're doing. It's something that you want to increase. Having a high HRV is a marker for having good health. When you inhale, by looking at your heart rate speeds up. When you exhale, your heart rate slows down. So you immediately trigger either your sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system by having a good breath, or let's say like a 5.5 second breath, that you're going to increase your HRV. And so you could see how the breath directly changes, how you feel or react to your environment, or you could use it to control it that way. With the Indian philosophies, you look at it and it's doing exactly the same thing. If I breathe really fast, I'm going to trigger the part that says that I'm energetic. In yoga, we call this rajas. So rajas is the outward expanding energy. Well, the energy goes out and it goes until it reaches exhaustion. And then we go into tamas, which is like condensing, drawing down, and grounding. So this is related to our parasympathetic nervous system, really the dorsal vagal, which is the older part of our parasympathetic nervous system. And then you have the balance part of it, which in yoga we call the sattva, which relates to our ventral vagal nervous system. And this is really how, when everything's imbalanced, how we deal with like social engagement, how we interact with other people, and how we feel about ourselves. So I saw that there's this direct correlation. It was like each map was laid over each other. And I wanted to really help people navigate through these different things. So if you want to change an aspect of your life, whether it's physically, emotionally, energetically, you know how to navigate that map. Because it's one thing to have a map, it's another thing to know how to read that map.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you gonna do? What's the choice that you're going to make?